Welcome to Orbit Seekers. This is episode 5 of Made for This with Laurel Kassor, the podcast where kindred spirits converge to experience firsthand how astrology turns from abstract insight to real-world impact when you follow your soul's arc. Every episode of this show serves as a living case study where I get down with soul-led practitioners, educators, and creatives to connect the constellations between their lived reality and their soul syllabus, illuminating exactly why they're made to do the thing that only they can do. I'm Laurel Kassor, your Astro Oracle host and founder of Soul Arc Astrology, and today's guest is Oriyah Soul, entrepreneur, poet, and cycle syncing guide who has built her entire business on healing, self-love, Mother Earth worship, and of course, the matriarchy. She helps women balance their energy, their bodies, and their lives, and reminds them that they do not have to walk this path alone. Having navigated autoimmune disease, health crises, karmic relationships, and of course, breaking generational patterns, Oriyah brings a level of lived expertise that you simply cannot fake. And if her chart is any indication, she's always going to be the one to break the cycle. Thank you so much for joining us, Oriyah.
Thank you for having me. I am so excited.
We're so excited to have you here today and to learn more about your early childhood and the formative events and the ways that you've already been living this work that you do. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about how you help people?
I mean, currently my main focus is just helping people feel less alone. I feel like there is so much disconnection happening right now in the world, and it's so praised to be like independent. And I want people to know that that's not natural. Our natural form is connection. That's why I work so closely with Mother Earth, because I feel like we are her essentially. We come from her. And so I want people who choose to follow me to understand that, like, you are not alone. This journey is hard, and that's okay if you need help. Let's guide you, and not just me, but whoever they want to work with, however you want to work with. Let yourself be guided through people, through entities, through astrology, through psychology, however it looks for you. Use the sources. You know?
I love that. Use the sources. That one like really hit right into the heart there. And we're going to talk a lot about the sources today because your chart is deeply connected into the source energy. And before we dig into Oriyah's early story, Oriyah does have her sun in Aries. Hey, queen, just like me. Oriyah's moon is in Gemini, and she is a Cancer rising. And I can tell you right up front, we're going to spend a lot of time hanging out in that Cancer field, especially up front, because one of the early formative experiences it looks like you may have had with the planet Ceres. Now, Oriyah, this is a planet that's like it's not like unique just to Soul Arc Astrology, but I do treat her a little bit differently than some other astrologers. Is this an energy you have been introduced to before?
Not at all. I'm so excited to dive in.
Okay, super exciting. I freaking love Ceres. So, in Soul Arc Astrology, Ceres is the planetary force that I associate with Taurus energy and Pillar 2. So Pillar 2 is the value pillar. I call Pillar 2 value. And the cosmic variables that make it up are Ceres, the dwarf planet, Taurus, the sign, the second house, and the opening semi-sextile aspect. And so all of those different variables are sourced from the same essential essence energy and processes of this value and worth and sustainability.
Very sensual, very grounded.
Very. So like everything people think the Taurus side of Venus, it actually is Ceres that they're talking about. Your Ceres is actually in your first house. Reason I bring Ceres up is because she is the first planet that falls in your chart after your ascendant. She is in your first house. She's in the sign of Cancer. Ceres, being this energy, she's the planetary force, stability, consistency, value, worth, cycles. I really think that Ceres has to do with cycles, has to do with predictable, dependable rhythms. I think that I've seen Ceres and Taurus like show up in percussion. and in music, and it's setting the bass, setting the beat, setting the consistent thing that you can rely on. I've had
Oh my
many
God.
clients show up in my chair when they're having significant hormonal stuff going on and their Ceres is being heavily impacted. So Ceres is this energy that has so much to do with not just the, in finger quotes, invisible things and values and concepts like worth and value, but also like the tangible resources, money, the environment is a Syrian topic
Oh,
straight up. It's clearly quite vibrant in your birth chart because you
I
do
think
so
so
much work
too.
with Mother Earth. And so your
Right?
Ceres, the Earth, like a representative agent of Earth, is actually representing herself in the sign of the Mother. Isn't that interesting?
It's not a coincidence. That's my fucking sense of self. That's why I always say I feel like I am Mother Earth. Like I embody her. I am here to plant seeds on her behalf.
And there she is, right there in that first house, that I am house, right? Okay, so the funny thing is now you've identified and reflected that, like, holy shit, Ceres actually does mean something cool to me. I bring her up as this first energy to engage with is because in this technique, the idea is that where a planet falls in your chart tells us when there were some very important formative experiences that set a template around the themes of that planet for you in your
Yeah.
consciousness.
I can immediately think of how it makes sense considering she's in Cancer and I was raised by like a single mother. Just her and I for 18 years.
Ceres is before the year-old mark. Like, she falls before the year-old mark.
Something kind of crazy, right when I turned 1 was when my parents got divorced. Like right at that mark. And that's what changed everything because instead of growing up with a father and a mother, I grew up with a mother, which I honestly find as to be a blessing. I'm glad that I grew up with just my mother, but yeah, no, that makes sense. Like that changed everything. That changed the total trajectory. You know, my mother was like, I need to raise this daughter on my own. And that's what she did.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember the special type of feelings or thoughts or relationship that you and your mother had?
Yes, quite well. I don't know if I'd call it, sure, we can call it special. If anything, I was there to break the cycle. I was there to witness the cycle in her and to say enough is enough. So I witnessed her and her shadowed parts and I witnessed everything that she did. And I looked at her and I said, that'll never be me. I'm not taking that with me. That's not who I want to be. I just remember looking at her from a very young age and being like, this doesn't make sense to me. I think that's what it was always like for me.
Was there anything in particular that didn't make sense?
Yeah, women are the providers. Women are the protectors. It's so backwards, this patriarchy thing. I'm like, no, no, no. Patriarchy, where women are the fucking creators. That is the only logical explanation to me.
Your Ceres is in an exact, we would call it a opening quincunx.
What is that?
A quincunx is a 150-degree aspect. So it's when planets they're in signs that share no element or modality or polarity with each other. Basically, the signs that the planets are in have nothing in common with each other. And your Ceres is exactly in a quincunx with your Neptune in the 8th house.
So, oh, wait, pause. This makes sense because for me, the big theme in my childhood was hate. There was a lot of hate emitting in the womanhood. I mean, I don't want to like shit talk my mother here because I have a lot of respect for what she went through herself as someone who has gone through the generational trauma, breaking cycle, all of that. But she was not capable of loving me. She was not capable of loving, period. She was in this bubble of self-hate and she projected that onto me. And that created also, but on the other like scale, she was also very like boundaryless. So the emotional lines between her and I, exactly, Neptune, the emotional lines were completely blurred between us. It was total enmeshment, like totally.
And that makes so much fucking sense for Ceres specifically because, like, and I'm looking at your moon, and obviously we're going to talk about the moon too specifically, but your Ceres, it is this force about what comforts us, about what is tangible, about how we experience our physical relationship with the world. So Neptune, I mean, you're using perfect Neptunian words. And this is the thing, I was saying this before we started recording, but I love to tell my clients, no one will ever interpret your birth chart better than you just sharing your story. Because this connection to Neptune is a projecting planet. Neptune is an illusionary planet. Neptune is a planet that blurs lines.
My mother was the queen of fantasies. She taught me how to fantasize without actualizing.
Oh, wow. This is really fascinating. Pause, because
What?
actualizing is one of my key words I use for Ceres. It is like one of the words that I had that is actually coded, because stick with me on this. All planets manifest.
Right.
All planets manifest. If I were personally to give a manifestation the way that like it's marketed to one planet, it would be Ceres, because Ceres is about the actualizing of something, the bringing something down into the tangible, physical, so it can become dense and solid and stable and unchanging and predictable.
That makes sense, because in my journey, until something becomes an identity within me, I will not see it in my reality. It only shows up after it becomes created in me, always.
That is that first house placement of Ceres, because
Wow.
in Soul Arc Astrology, we treat the first house as one of the agents of Pillar 1, impact. The other agents of Pillar 1 are Mars and Aries and the conjunction. So that first house is the realm where an individual entity's separate I am force lives. And your Ceres force is, I am going to actualize protection, because it is in Cancer. So we can't forget how there is a protective, it's caretaking. Yes, it's nurturing. Yes, it's about learning acceptance and providing support. These are Ceres and Cancer, right? And like provisioning people with unconditional love, which is another kind of Cancerian thing, like the unconditional love, like only a mother could love. That's a Cancer ass motherfucking Pillar 4 thing, if ever I've heard one. But it's really interesting because you do have Ceres in a trine to your MC, which is really neat.
What is my MC?
Your MC's in Pisces. So the MC is that has to do with career, reputation, vocation, what you are known for, what you contribute into the real world. This is fascinating because Pisces is part of Pillar 12 with Neptune, with the 12th house.
There it is again. Oh, there's my freaking 12th house. Yeah.
Oriyah does have 3 planets in her 12th house, including
I got a busy 12th house.
Saturn conjunct her ascendant in Cancer as well, which is bringing in another element of mom, which we've already started to hear a little bit more about. We're also hearing more about how the Ceres connection to Neptune specifically is grounding in this need to actualize some sort of tangible, predictable protection, defense, acceptance, and support, especially when it comes to the quincunx. So that means there is something that Ceres, the planet of I'm actualizing here, and Neptune, who I'm dissolving here. There is a relationship between them in your chart that says, we have to figure out how to make this workable, how to make this function.
Because it appears very opposites.
Mm-hmm.
It was more like watching her raise me and just being like, that's just wrong. Or as I got older, I would watch her, like I was like 10, 11 years old, and I'd watch her in these relationships with men. I remember I was like 11 years old and I watched her go through one particular relationship, and I was like, I will never, ever do that. Like, I will never, ever put myself in the position she put herself in, the way she went back to someone who treated her so shitty. Like, this man was a con artist and she still went back to him. And I watched how she like lost herself in the relationship. And that solidified something inside of me that I was like, that will never be me. And I also have avoidant tendencies in my nature in general. And watching her in those relationships just made it like times 100. I was like, fuck relationships. No, never gonna let someone have my heart like that. I really started seeing it because that's when things in my life started almost falling apart, and I was watching it. Age 9, I think I was in grade 3 or 4. And if I was, that was around the time that I was actually switched schools and moved to a more religious school by choice of my mother. And then age 10 was when my dad was arrested. And I quickly learn that my dad is not the little Mr. Hero that he played out to be in my childhood.
What you're speaking to directly is your sun is square your Saturn. We mentioned your Saturn a little bit there. Your Saturn's in the 12th house. So
Yeah.
your sun is in Aries. Aries is a sign that has to do with being independent. So it's not uncommon for Aries adults to have been independent children.
Yep.
In some sense,
Yeah.
or had experiences in which they were prompted in some way, shape, or form towards individualism and
It was
towards,
always
like,
like that
making
for
your
me,
own
though.
rules.
I don't remember how old I was, but I learned from a very young age to not, like, associate with my mother, if that makes sense. Like, even though she would
Mm,
try to enmesh, she would try to be emotionally like this, and she would say or do the things that she would do, there was a part of me that was just, like, shut down from it all. Like, I knew if I had to survive this, I needed to extract myself. And so I kinda
mhm,
started creating and building my own world internally as a result.
mhm. 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 That would make a lot of sense. You have that very rich 12th house. The Jupiter, that brings us kind of back. I know we're like jumping. This is how the charts work. It's like everything's a fucking
Yeah.
circle, so everything's popping back and in connection with itself. But that Jupiter in retrograde in the 3rd house, it is in a sextile to your Saturn in the 12th house. So like the idea that like you kind of turn inward to create your own systems of understanding the details of your world, but doing it from kind of a fantastical
Yeah.
escapism
Yeah.
type of lens. That's Saturn in the 12th.
Totally fantasy escapism.
Yeah, and that is like and again, that's also on the Neptune. Like nothing in the birth chart happens in isolation. I know we might be zooming in on certain aspects as we're storytelling here, but it's so much more than just like, oh, that one thing and that one thing only. It's like, no, there are usually echoes of energy going on throughout an entire chart. We have multiple features here. That same part of turning inward to construct, which is a Saturn thing. Like you constructed an inner reality that kept you
Yeah.
safe, which is Saturn and Cancer.
Yeah.
It's like Saturn and Cancer, it is in its polarity there. Saturn, it has to become a master, a boss, an authority at holding space, at accepting feelings, at creating care.
Yep. That's what I've been doing for myself the last few years. I mean, consciously,
Hmm.
subconsciously, I've been doing it since I was a child. Again, I would just go into
Exactly.
my imagination. I loved it. I would pretend Spider-Man was my boyfriend.
Naturally.
Of course.
But it also speaks to that square, even though it talks to that Jupiter and it gives it kind of an outlet to go, finger quotes, somewhere, aka your mind or the astral or like wherever your imagination might have taken you. It was also connected, that Saturn is also connected to your sun. And so your father going to prison is actually a very literal example of that energy. The sun literally represents father in astrology and in the birth chart, like quite literally. It represents also like what the decisions we make, the choices that we make, what we choose to pay attention to, what we create. It is the creative life force, it is the performance life force, it is confidence, but ultimately it has a lot to do with how we express ourselves and show ourselves off into the world. And so because of that, it has a lot to do with like fun and games and blah 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 and friends and our father. The theory around it is that like the father is the first playmate, your pride and joy, right? Like pride and joy are both words associated with Leo and with the sun and with the 5th house and with pillar 5, right? The sun has literally to do with father. And of course, a child's actions are reflections of a parent's choices and how they raise them. So you can see that there's like a deep, it just keeps cycling back
Yeah.
into it.
It all has to do with each other. I love that. It's so good for my Gemini brain. Yeah.
That sun is square Saturn. So this showed up obviously in your life as your father going to prison. And the 12th house represents places like prison. It literally is prisons, hospitals, institutions, monasteries, retreat centers.
That's so crazy. Wait. Wait a minute here. So son represents father. My dad, yeah, was arrested when I was 10, went to prison. And then now what's happening is he's been in the hospital a lot, back and forth. So it's that theme showing up again over a decade later. Around
Mhm.
just, oh my God, exactly a decade later, because he got arrested when I was 10 and he went out of prison when I was 12. So this is literally a decade later. And we're seeing these like
That's
similarities.
Really interesting, because it would have been 12 years since he went to prison, which is about a Jupiter cycle, actually. That's
Really?
interesting.
So it's hitting his birth chart in the same place that it was then.
Which then, of course, affects your birth chart in some kind of way, too.
Yeah. Oh,
But
yeah,
it's
I
going to
know.
show up as more than just him now. Like, when
So
we are kids, and I say this in some of the other episodes, like, when we were kids, it is our first rodeo. And so, like, I am a believer that the universe meets us where it can find us. It meets us where we are. It's going to take the path of least resistance to deliver experience to us. And so, like, when we're kids, of course, like, the sun literally becomes dad and the moon literally becomes mom experiences, you know? That's what it can fucking gather, right? Like, so the older we get, obviously more complex and more sophisticated are our minds and our patterns and our integrations and all the psychology that has gone into living and experiencing our lives. And so, like, even though you're maybe not as close with your dad as you were then, or like as involved or he's as connected into your
I
life
mean,
as
I
he might have
never really
been.
was. He was very absent, physically very, very absent. So, like, I never was really close with him. But I don't know. As a kid, we just assume our dads, I feel like, are our heroes. So
Mhm.
for me, when he would show up, I was like, "Daddy, hero!" And now I'm like, "Oh, honey, no."
That's the sun.
Yeah,
Hero is the sun. Main character is the sun. Okay. Dad is hero. Like, you see how
yeah.
it is.
It's me
You
changing
see it?
from him being my main character, like the main character in my life, to me being the main character in my life. I'm doing this legally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, all of them, one by one.
And this is on that square. So the sun, I mentioned pillar 5. It is the planet of the creation pillar.
Yeah.
That's the sun's job. It is in contact with Saturn, who is the planet of the authority pillar.
They come hand in hand.
Your sun is in the 10th house, which is the house of the authority pillar. And it's making a closing square, the aspect of the authority pillar. And it's making that closing square to the authority planet. So what this is basically is a massive fucking reverb on a theme. Here we have creation linking up with authority in a echo way, where it is saying, like, our literal job, because this is Saturn, this is the 10th house, this is the closing square, this is the authority pillar, which translates into obviously authority, but also like mastery, reputation, career, being your boss, discipline, restrictions, limitations, denials, delays, hard work, effort. It is a very intense and important energy. It is a governing energy.
All my delays in life happened the most when I was dependent on my dad in some kind of way. Every single time, just delay after delay, things never making it. I have so many problems with the system currently because of the things that my father did. It's just,
The system.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
My dad's the definition of the system. It's really sad.
That is the sun square Saturn.
Yeah, the archetype.
We've been really deep into the early childhood bits to understand where you came from. Clearly, there was a lot where you had to kind of self-educate.
Always, everything. Girl, even like the tiniest things were like when I moved out of living with my mom and I bought myself a second bed sheet set. And I was like, that is so cool that I can own two, because I grew up with a mother who was like, you're only allowed to own one. And it was just like such a small
Mm.
thing. And yet it expanded my mind and my belief system so much.
That's really interesting, because possession goes back to Ceres
There you
again.
go.
She's the planet of possession. She's the planet of ownership. She's the planet of stewardship. I own my own ability to care for myself. I was
Yeah.
able to provide this thing for me, right? So that is a huge piece, that Sarian flow. I want to fast forward out of childhood. It does look like there was some very significant stuff that may have happened into what looks like maybe late teens, early 20s. This is
Yeah.
when Pluto would have shown up in your life. It looks like around 20, you would have had a Pluto moment. Now, your Pluto is exactly opposite your moon. So here are some of the themes. This could have been around work. This could have been around service. This could have been around health. It likely had something to do with home because the moon was involved in it, but Pluto is here. So we're looking at something that could be dangerous, that could be scary in some way, that could feel like overpowering or domineering, potentially toxic, because Pluto is about cleansing and purifying. It is again connected directly to your moon. Does this ring a bell? Was there anything
Yep.
around that time?
When I was 20, I went through one of the worst heartbreaks. And then right after I got out of a relationship, I started working 2 full-time jobs, hustling, grinding, surviving off of sour sticks and like Bisley, if you know what that is. And
I don't know what
then
Bisley is.
it's like an Israeli snack. It's like this like crunchy kind of wheat-based snack. It's a vibe.
Okay.
It's a vibe. And then, so yeah, I was working 2 jobs. I was hustling my way through life, sleeping like 2 hours. That's when my PMDD started flaring up and I got severe PMDD on top of all that. And then I was living with my dad at the time. I moved out and I got my very own first apartment solo by myself in September of
Oh.
2024 it was. So I was 20.
My gosh. Wow. Now, this would have been so significant. Pluto shows up when things are really extreme. Can you tell us more about like what was going through your head?
Honestly, well, the relationship and the breakup triggered my abandonment wound. And I started facing that for the first time ever. And I was realizing like, these men ain't shit. I have to be the one who's there for myself. And that's what also triggered my desire to move out to begin with. I wasn't thinking about moving out, but after that breakup and after I started sitting with my abandonment wound and the way I was abandoning myself, right? I'm working 2 jobs. I'm not sleeping. I'm not eating right. I'm not cycle syncing. What the hell is cycle syncing? And I was just like, this isn't okay. I have to start going internal. That was like another big moment for me where I was like, it's time that I start looking inside and not abandon myself because this is a theme in my life that cannot keep going.
What did you do? How did you start that process?
Honestly, that's such a good question. There was a lot of chaos at the time, like very much my internal world, my mind and my heart was so chaotic. There was no peace. There was no room for peace. My PMDD triggered my PTSD and that shit started coming up for me too. I finally left the environment that was hurting me, whether that be my mother or my father. And I was finally alone with my thoughts and my feelings. And I realized that something was deeply not okay. I was like, I am not okay. I am in my luteal phase for 3 weeks out of every single month. I am sweating even though it's 9 degrees Celsius outside, which is kind of cold. My friends are in like coats and I'm in a t-shirt. Like there was something not okay happening in my body. And then my PMDD would trigger my PTSD and I would start having these very intense episodes and all these memories would come flooding back. And it was basically like, I have to sit in them. I can't keep running away. My body won't let me. And then in February of 2025, so like a month and a half before my birthday, before I turned 21, my nervous system completely crashed, shut down and said, Oriyah, enough is enough. You have to face your fucking demons because you're carrying them in your body. And that's when I realized that I had to go internal. I had to see what was really going on. That's when I actually started reparenting myself. That was when that same theme started coming up.
Your Pluto opposite your moon and your moon being in Gemini and in the 12th house. Moon has a lot to do with memories. Pluto has a lot to do with buried things.
Yeah.
As you would have been hitting these experiences, it would have been pulling up all of these dissociated or run away from memories. Your moon is in the 12th house. Remember, you told us earlier in your life, in order to manage, to make it through, you would escape into your own mind. And I'm sure there were a few things that probably got put in little boxes.
Oh, of course. So many boxes. I'm like, let's never deal with this. And then the universe is like, no, let's deal with this. And here's the trigger to force you to deal with this.
Bingo. And so getting away from the old systems of support, it's funny in a way because like escaping them allowed you to stop escaping yourself in a way.
I finally had time to sit with myself. There was no one in my ear anymore. I remember that was a big theme in my life. I'm like, there is no one in my ear. There's no one telling me what to do, what not to do. There's no one shaming me for like getting out of bed at 2, 3 p.m. anymore. No one's in my head nitpicking everything. So I could finally hear myself, which when hearing myself, I was like, oh, that is not okay the way I'm talking to myself. I'm so hard on myself. I'm so mean. I got to sit with this. This is not okay. Where is this coming from? Because it always comes from an emotion. These loops that we have in our mind, these self-critiquing loops and all these mental patterns, they all stem from just a feeling, an emotion, something that wasn't dealt with or something that deep-seated pain, the grief, whatever it is, there's always a deeper emotional reasoning behind it. And I sat with it And I actually sat with my mother wound before I ever sat with my father wound. So I really learned in real time how to parent myself, how to sit with my inner child. I created a whole relationship with her that
That's
I never
really
had with my mother.
I love that you're speaking about the way that you were self-talking and the way that you were in mental loops. That's speaking so loudly to your Gemini moon.
Yeah. Oh,
Moon in Gemini, it is a very much a like emotional conversation, right? Like we're having emotional conversations, we're intellectualizing our emotions. Emotions become data sets.
yeah. It's all fucking data for me.
It is all data. And it's exactly what I mean. This you're speaking to another like air heavy person here, but it is all data. I think that you had mentioned before we started recording something about mold in your apartment.
Yeah.
Was this in that
No, it was in
apartment?
my second apartment. I lived in that apartment for about 11 and a half months. And then I moved out and I moved cities. I had dealt with a lot of karmic relationships in the city that I was living in. And I would literally leave my apartment and run into like 3 exes within a span of 10 minutes. So I was
Mhm,
like, I need to get out of here. It was another escapism. Like, there you go. There's that theme again. And so I
mhm, mhm,
moved 2 hours away and started this whole new life in this new city. And I was very excited. And then within 1 month of me living in that city and in that apartment, I discovered that there was really, really bad mold and I was getting
mhm.
sick as a result from it. I was in that apartment from September of 2025 until December of 2025. And it was my health crisis just, whew. I was forced to learn how to take care of my body. So with my first apartment, I'm forced to learn how to take care of my inner child, my emotional world. My second house, I learned how to take care of my physical body so that it wouldn't
Mhm,
fail on me, for lack of better words.
mhm. That makes complete sense. The reason I asked about the toxic apartment is because it was clear from the first story that you were sharing when you got out from a toxic environment and then you went to your own apartment. There is some kind of
Ironic.
theme, as we can see, about there being things to cleanse when it
Yeah.
comes to home and sanctuary and acceptance and belonging and shelter and lineage. And that's something I also want to kind of dig a little bit deeper into because there is so much about these energies that are at play in your chart that have to do with inheritance, that have to do with ancestry, that have to do with lineage, that have to do with healing. Part of the work that you do with your clients is generational cycle
Yeah.
breaking. Part of the work that you sounds like it done with yourself is breaking the patterns that you were witnessing in your
So
mother,
many.
breaking the patterns from your father. You're the youngest guest I've interviewed yet, so you're still in these deep
I'm still
parts of
just
the
starting.
developmental journey.
I feel like I'm 29 based on what I've been through, but I'm only
Mhm.
22 years old, and that's just so fucking crazy to me. I always say that what I've been through in a matter of months is what people go through in 5, 10 years.
Well, so this is one of the interesting things about like why I'm eager to get to talking about this Pluto section of the chart. I find that when people have their Pluto moments, if you will, when they're like face to face with the Plutonian energy of their life, does age a person.
It does.
Forces you to deal in themes and experiences and processes that are typically associated with death and rebirth cycles, which are
I've
heavy
been through so many of those.
in a dominance and corruption and manipulation and abuse in all kinds
Yeah.
of danger. It's a very underworldy energy, very shadowy energy, because it is this energy that has to do with healing. Again, Pluto belongs to pillar 8. So does Scorpio. So does the 8th house. Your Neptune is in the 8th house. So that tells us something about transcending inherited perspectives. Your Neptune's in Aquarius, perspectives, Aquarius thing. We got Pluto making this contact to the moon. The moon is in the house of pillar 12. So again, we're having a lot of echoes in the chart itself about transcending old ways of thinking, old ways of seeing things,
Yeah.
old ways of believing. Pluto in Sagittarius, it is a generation of people whose collective shared healing journey is around belief and it is around principles and it is in how they interpret the reality around them. So to me, it makes sense that when you traveled out beyond the reach of the shelter of the home and the ways of thinking and et cetera, that you were able to start doing some of the deep work, not only on yourself, but also on some of the generational patterns. But I would love to hear a little bit more about like, what are these patterns that you have been healing in yourself?
Actually, interestingly enough, it started when I was 17. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was like I said, I was young. It started when I was 17 because I ended up in a love triangle of sorts. And what I was experiencing was just the drama of it, the intensity of it mirrored some similarities to things that my mother had been through. And so when I got out of the relationship and I looked at it, I was like, I don't want to be my mother. I don't want to be this person too. I don't want to hurt people. I hurt people in the process of this love triangle. And that's just not who I am at my core. And I knew that. And I knew that I had to change that. I had to change the way I looked at love because before that, when I was 17, I was attracted to chaos, drama, toxicity. Like, I loved it when a man liked me, but he had a girlfriend. It was really, really toxic. It was that like core wound of choose me, pick me, love me. That's very much like comes from my mother's side. And so when I was 17, I was like, actually, I'm going to choose me, pick me, love me, and see what happens. And well, 5 years later, that's so not what I'm attracted to anymore. I don't think toxicity, I don't think drama or intensity equals love.
Juicy. Oh, that's so juicy. It speaks to a couple of different parts of the chart. Number one, like obviously when you were speaking about relationships, the default checkpoint is Venus. I think most astrologers would agree that when someone mentions relationships, you just like kind of your eyes just are going to drift there just to check in. But when you kept talking, I'm like, this isn't about Venus. This is about the fucking sun again. The sun in Aries square your Saturn in Cancer. Saturn happens to be the planet that rules your 7th house of relationships. Hello. Because if it's not Venus, then the second place astrologers look is the 7th house. So it is connected that way. But pick me energy is sun energy. Make a choice. Make it me.
Such a pick me.
This echoes back to your sun is in the 10th house. There's something about rules. Pick me despite the rules. Pick me even though rules. And there's that square to Saturn.
Let me just tell you
12th house.
That's exactly what that love triangle was, where it was like he shouldn't want me and I shouldn't want him because like I have a boyfriend, and that was part of the pull. It was like the pull of, and he knows my boyfriend, and like we all ran in the same friend group. It was messy. It was messy. But 17-year-old Oriyah only knew messy. I'd only ever witnessed my mother in messy, chaotic relationships. It was all that I knew. So at 17 years old, after this, I was like, this is not normal. Like, I cannot keep going like this. I don't want these types of relationships.
That's the juicy fucking juice. Like, this is the good stuff right here. Because that literally was you coming to terms with some of the Saturn stuff. But the thing is, when we are young, it is our first rodeo and we don't know any better. It's like I was saying earlier, we only know what we know.
Yeah. We witness our parents and that's what we take with us. That's all we know. We mirror our parents. And so my mother doing what she was doing with the people she was with, losing herself to these men, that was another reason. I was watching myself lose myself and I was watching my mother lose her. And I was like, no, I don't want that. That's not me.
You were able to see it. And that's part of, I think, that Saturn being in Cancer conjunct your ascendant and in the 12th house too. You're like absorbing, you're immersed into the rules of mom's rules, but it's lost in the sauce. It's confusing and it's blurry. And so it's almost like you were playing. And I think that this is a really interesting moment to talk about how the sun, the sun represents play and performance. Okay, when kids play, they're playing at life.
I had such a performance wound.
Preparing themselves for life and play in that way. And so it's almost like you were playing with real stakes. You know what I mean? Does this make sense? It's like
I was testing it. When I moved out, I was very much like testing my free will. Like, can I do this? And it was just the simplest things. Like, can I wake up at 5 a.m. and eat ground beef for breakfast? Will something bad happen to me? It was just these small little things, but like, it made such a difference to me, especially morning routines and specifically something, I don't know what it is in my chart, but I know in my childhood.
It's Saturn conjunct your ascendant from the 12th house in Cancer.
There you go.
I'll explain why in a second, but it is the thing that we're talking about. It literally is structure. The ascendant is entrance or emergence.
That makes sense.
We enter the world. It's associated with the morning. It is literally the horizon line. of where the sun was
So
coming up when you were born, right?
for me, my morning routine was the hardest to pin down. I always had a decent night routine with my skincare, my red light, all that. But with my morning routine, I struggled. I had like this deep-seated anxiety in my stomach about my morning routine because when I was younger and I had my morning routine and I was going to school at 6 in the morning, my mother would still be asleep. And if I woke her up, all hell broke loose. If I made the tiniest peep, all hell broke loose. So my body associated her reaction, her anger, her withdrawal, silence, whatever she chose to use at the time, with morning routines. And it took me probably 6 to 8 months to regulate my body in my morning routine enough to where I actually felt safe. Now I love my morning routine. Now my morning routine is my fucking ritual.
Speaks so much to multiple things, but it definitely speaks to Saturn conjunct the ascendant. It speaks to Ceres and Cancer in that first house of being something that you can attach to and anchor to as like a form of stabilizing care. Again, this idea of one of the big things that you've been practicing and learning your whole life is how do we make care consistent and stable and predictable and dependable, especially as we are moving through our day to day. Right, which is that first house again. So it's kind of, there's a little union there between Saturn being like, hey, we fucking need some structures to pull us down from the ether and anchor us. I also think it speaks to your Chiron. We haven't really mentioned your Chiron yet, but your Chiron is in Capricorn. It is in your seventh house. I think this is where the relationships piece comes in so strongly. In my system, I treat Chiron as the planetary force of pillar 6 service, and it is associated with Virgo and the sixth house and the opening quincunx. And we treat Chiron not as a wounded healer. I think that that's maybe like a fingernail sliver of what Chiron does functionally and practically. But what Chiron actually is a chronic problem solver. It finds problems, diagnoses them, assesses them, and tries to fix them. And that's all Chiron does.
Me and my relationships. I can fix you. I can fix you. Well, that's also my Cancer, though. My Cancer and my relationships were like, I see potential. Let me fix you. And when I was 20 and came out of that relationships, I was like, yeah, no, fuck that. I don't need a pet project. I need to take care of myself.
Your Saturn in Cancer rules the seventh house. So it actually rules your Chiron too. Boom, that's deeply.
That's the connection.
Like, let's take what you were seeing and fuse it even more together because there is hierarchy involved there where Chiron is looking to Saturn and being like, hey, Saturn in Cancer in the 12th house, how do we feel about this stuff in the 7th house? There is a big reason why so much of your problem solving is playing out through partnership, through relationship, through one-on-one bonds, through client work.
Do you know how many of my relationships have literally been spiritual awakenings? I think.
Tell us about that.
Honestly, I don't know if it was never really about the relationship itself, even though they were significant. It was always what I did with it afterwards, how I chose to approach the relationship afterwards. Because every single time I would go through a heartbreak, I would be so devastated. It felt like I had that enmeshment wound from my mother. So I would enmesh with these men and then I would come out of it and be like, well, who the fuck am I outside of this relationship? And so every single time I had that same question, who am I outside of this relationship? I kind of had to force that answer. And the only way I could force it was by feeling it. I couldn't just rationalize it. I couldn't be like, well, it's this and this, or like the relationship when I was 20 and I came out of it and I realized, oh, I have abandonment issues. And so does he. And that's why we were attracted to each other. That was that very like sort of symbiotic, for lack of a better word, inner child relationship that him and I had where we mirrored each other's wound and lack of sense of self and just like the desire to enmesh into each other to form a sense of self. That was just such a theme in all my relationships. And every single one of my relationships have had some sort of spiritual awakening as a result.
Curious, after these relationships, you say that like what a lot of what they did was set you up to approach your next one in a new way, right? I'm curious, were you like in hindsight slowly kind of creating a little system of, okay, in relationships I need to do this and this in order to not lose myself?
I think for the first few relationships until I was like about 21, it was less about what I need to do for myself in the relationship and more what I need to not do in a relationship. I was learning what's wrong about it, what I'm doing wrong. I was learning that like, me living with a guy that I've only really been going out with and we're not even official for like 2 months, that's enmeshment. Oh, okay, that's good to know that. That's what I learned. But then the last 8 months, I've changed the way I view relationships. And so now I more look at it as, what is he representing in me? And how can I show up for myself even when I'm with other people? That's something that I've been learning to balance over the last few months. It's actually a fear that my inner child was going through when I went out with this guy like a couple months ago. And in it, my inner child kept being like, will you lose yourself to this? Will you compromise? Will you do this? And when I discovered that I, in fact, wouldn't, my inner child was like, cool. We passed the test.
Nice. Part of me wonders if like part of this work that you're doing around how these wounds have shown up through the vehicle. Like that's something I think a lot about. It's like how things show up through the vehicle of other people.
Everyone is just mirroring each other. That's all it really is. It's either projection or mirroring, but we're all doing it consciously, subconsciously, good, bad. It doesn't matter. We are only capable of seeing things. Well, not only, but we're capable of seeing things through our own reality, through our own biases. So naturally, some of our belief systems is going to be projected onto someone else.
Yeah. And it's very true. In astrology, it's as above, so below, as within, so without. And that's a big part of Soul Arc Astrology and this whole system. Everyone is a reflection of you, of some feature of yourself that is waiting to be integrated in some way. They're not going to be in your field otherwise. With that Chiron in Capricorn, it's like you are practiced at finding and assessing where there need to be tweaks in the systems of connection and of reflection and of how we see one another. Your Chiron is exactly square your Mercury, which is also in Aries. And so this speaks exactly to what you were just saying, which is how do you change or adjust or construct the way you think about the world and tweak the way you think about the world, which will then, of course, change the impact you make and that your words make, your actions make. Those are all Aries things, right? And Chiron's kind of being like, how do you do that more mature, bitch?
Literally. That is how I talk to myself. That's how my spirit team talks to me sometimes. If I don't want to see something or if I'm in denial about something, my spirit team will come down to me. They'll be like, girl, look at this. Stop living in denial. You know exactly where this is coming from. Now sit with it. And I'm like, damn, okay.
As you keep growing in your skill and in your practice, like more of that will naturally happen. More connection to the spirit team. I mean, you have so much, like you have 3 planets into your 12th house. It's in Gemini.
Yeah.
It's very channely. You gotta get very channely nature.
I mean, I'm a fucking channeler. And I also do a lot of astral work. I do a lot of subconscious energy work. And then I do a lot of work in my dreams, consciously in my dreams.
And that's on the 12th house, right? Like that's part of pillar 12.
There's that duality for me of learning I've had to learn how to balance between my astral life and my physical life, because if I'm all in on my astral realm and if all I'm doing is like living in my third eye and my crown chakra, then unfortunately things don't get done and the dishes pile up. And I have to learn how to balance between it. And I don't sometimes love it because I'm like, I just want to live in my third eye. It's so fun up there. But I gotta ground. I gotta make that physical.
And that's Saris, I think. Like that's a lot on that Saris energy. There's a lot on the Taurus energy too. Like your North Node is in Taurus. So like, which is really interesting in and of itself, just because it's an indicator that like there's a lot of your energy that is kind of out there in the ethers and would like to be out there in the ethers. But there's a movement towards how do we actually condense and consolidate and make things more stable.
How do I make it tangible?
Yes, and sensual, you know? So it's a really interesting mixture of energy that you bring into play.
I write. That's how I make everything tangible. Everything that I experience in the spiritual world and in my emotional world, I have it all written down, mainly in poetic form too.
Fun fact, that's a pillar 12, like Neptune, 12th house, Pisces.
There you go. I've been writing since I was 7 years old. I used to make up words so I could rhyme in my poetry.
Oh, I love that. That's so fun. That checks out. I love that. It's really interesting to see the way that your whole chart, because we haven't really talked about Mars, but we talked about it being square your Uranus, but your Mars is in Gemini. And so it's like, how do we take actions through our words, through the mind? It's interesting too, because it almost seems as if it would be difficult to take actions unless it's like divinely inspired.
The balance between me wanting to live in the spiritual world versus being tangible with it and learning how to ground in it and how I use my writing to ground it. And then I was saying how, yes, I'm currently in this tower moment. And the tower moment literally started with me going into my ethers. I went into my spiritual realm. I lived in my crown chakra for probably like a week and a half, 2 weeks. And when I was in there, I was doing a lot of spiritual work, a lot of subconscious work. I was like moving energies kind of around my energy field. And then within a week of me coming back down, the tower moment happened. The universe was like, fucking timeline collapse. We're done. We're moving her on to the next realm, whether she's ready for it. She did the spiritual work. She's ready for it. We're doing it. Because the spiritual for me it's got to be spiritual first, and then the physical lines up. And that's exactly what happened.
I think that says a lot about that strong 12th house influence
Yeah.
that
so
you
strong.
have. And not only that, it's like you got Mars and Saturn in there, right? Like those are action-taking planets. Mars is literally an action, and it's a trigger planet, and it's a moving planet, and it's an
And it's
initiation
in my
planet.
subconscious.
And it rules your sun. There's so much that is coming through the ethers to you that is feeding the decision making. That is almost like saying, like, we hold until we know. We hold until we know. And we can't describe when we know what we know, but we know it when we know it. It's very shifty and shimmery almost, but it does seem like a lot of the direction and structure sources from source itself. And let's talk about where you're at now in the journey. What kind of work are you doing with your clients?
It really depends on the client. My goal is usually I like to start off with like a session just to see where they're at, see how they're doing currently. I'm not looking necessarily to immediately hear about their childhood or look at their chart or even look at their cycle symptoms, because that is something I'll do. I'll look at someone's symptoms over the course of 3 to 6 months, and I'll tell them what's going on with their hormones and how they can fix it by doing the emotional work. Because that's how I did it with my PMDD. The more I regulated, the more I did the emotional work, the more I sat with the wounds and everything that was coming up, the more my PMDD was healed, and the less the symptoms were this like extreme insomnia, extreme mood swings, all that kind of extreme physical pain too. And so the first session is really just about who are you and who do you want to be right now in this moment. And from there, I do a lot of shadow work. I'll do some channeling for them if they need that kind of guidance or something. I do a lot of somatic work too. I find that somatics, especially for women, is very, very important. Even for men, though, I find that men are we're very disconnected from our body naturally. And I want women to remember where the fuck they came from. I want women to remember who the fuck they are. We are cyclical beings governed by the moon. And I want women to remember that. And it's also so individualistic. It's not just like, we're all moon beings. No. It's like, you have your own rhythm. Let's tap into it. Let's see what that rhythm looks like and feels like for you. Let's see how it shows up for you on a day-to-day basis.
That's on that Ceres and Cancer in that first house.
Right.
That's in that responding to the moon and Gemini in the 12th. Like, for real, for real.
I mean, the moon is my mother. I don't know if that makes sense, but for me, even as a child, I would look up at the sky, see the moon, and something inside of me was like, okay, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be safe. I felt held every single time I would stare at the moon.
That's exactly what she intends to impart to us. That is exactly her vibe. And I think that the fact that you are a Cancer rising with Saturn and Cancer conjunct your ascendant, with Ceres and Cancer, like really cements, again, it's Ceres and Cancer, like cements a connection to an energy deeply. And that moon energy and that understanding of the cycles, I think that you are especially poised to understand cycles and receptivity, and especially those around rest cycles or hormonal cycles or bodily.
I just want people to know that there's a better way. Like, I see people talk about, oh, cramps are normal, cramps are this, cramps. And I'm like, no, cramps are actually not normal. They are speaking to you, though. Let me help you translate that. Because everyone's cramps are stemming from something else. Last month, I had really bad cramps, more than usual. And instead of taking a pill, which I personally wouldn't do, I sat with my cramps and I literally asked them, I was like, why are we bracing? Why is it painful? What are you trying to move through? And then I literally cried for an hour and had this huge internal epiphany of this wound that was coming up. And that's what I do with women too. I take a symptom and I'm like, this is how it's mirroring your emotional world. This is the shadow behind it.
Oh, I love that. That's speaking so much to that Chiron in Capricorn in the 7th
Yeah.
house, I think. The task of being able to direct the energy, with people. Reflecting back to the Saturn in Cancer in the 12th house and like really understand like what is the emotion governing
Yeah.
underneath it all, and then coming up with the
That's me in a nutshell.
processes to actually be able to move them through. And you said translate, which is why I went to Chiron, because your Chiron square your Mercury, right? Like that was my mental jump, because literally it is the skill. Chiron is the methodical translation of what is wanted, which is also partly the 7th house and partly like working with the clients of what is wanted, and being able to define that and pinpoint that in a sea of things that can be inherently difficult to pinpoint. But I think that Mercury in Aries is trying to really throw a dart and grab the data.
Exactly. That's what I do. I mean, that's why I'm so good at clocking people.
Yes, that is why.
I will see
100%.
someone, feel their energy. They'll say something. Like last night, I was talking to this guy. I knew him for maybe 10 minutes, and he was basically saying, my artwork is a hobby. I don't want to make money off of it right now because I don't think that it's good enough. He's like, it's not that good. Like, it's shitty after I finish it. And I'm like, is it shitty or do you just view it as shitty? And he was like, ooh, clocked. It's just who I am. And that's what I do with my clients too. I'll clock them. I'll be like, is this really what's going on, or is there something underneath? Let's look at what's culminating. Let's look at the foundation of it too.
Absolutely, absolutely. With your Mercury in the 11th house is related to the 11th pillar, which has to do with innovation and Uranus and Aquarius. Perspective. It's about perspective. It's about like, let me offer you information to move you forward with that perspective. I have a way to do it, but it means having to accept something that we maybe feel threatened by. And that's part of that aspect, because this is something you would have had to learn too, and through, and this circling back, because astrology is always circling back to what you were saying about your relationships, how that is a vehicle through which a lot of these lessons have played out for you in the real world, to anchor these otherworldly like understandings and lessons and downloads and channels and everything. It's showing people you've learned how to translate things that are totally emotional and totally impulse and totally gut responsive in nature in a way that is actionable.
Yeah.
Like insights
my
and data
poetry.
points. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's what I do. That's what I do in my poem books that I have. I take a wound or a situation and I analyze it and I deep dive. It's also my Gemini, where I look at one freaking wound and I look at the 20 different things that created the wound and the 20 different symptoms that like come out from the wound.
Yes, to me that is like you were speaking so strongly to the Gemini placements who are governed by Mercury in Aries, who is governed by Mars in Gemini. So there's a mutual reception there.
Yeah.
But that Mercury is in an exact square to Chiron, who is the assessor and the dissector and the analyzer.
Wow.
And is saying like, what can we zoom in? Both Mercury and Chiron both have to do with detail. I think all of the mutable signs do, just different types of information, right? I think that Gemini is intellectual information and Mercury is intellectual information, like pillar 3, intellectual information, and pillar 6, Chiron Virgo, is practical and applicable, functionality and competency in the real world, right? Technique. And so you, through the poetry, are applying both at the same time. You're working out skill through this dissection of the process. And that's another important thing about Chiron and the energy around it, is that Chiron is a process planet. It is the planet of processing and refining, which is why it's that practice planet. And like, I know you said wound, which is common, I think, to think of the problems as wounds, because when something is a problem long enough, it sure as fuck feels like a wound, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's really like solvable. If we tweak, we can adjust these things and make them more
I'm
competent.
going to change the word. Instead of wound, you can literally just call it emotion, because that's what it all boils down to. You can call it a wound. You could be like abandonment wound, lack wound, performance wound. It's an emotion. It's a fear. It's grief. It's heartbreak. It's rage. It's a felt sensation. For me, it starts in the body. I show my clients, here's where it is in your body too.
I love that. That ties her back into the Sarah's Cancer connection of the physical and the emotional are very interlocked.
Yeah, Cancer's
for
an emotional body. for me.
Well, for you, like the way that you would experience it would be an emotional body. You know what I'm saying? Like the moon is the emotional body, but your emotional body is intellectual. Your Ceres and Cancer is making your body emotional. There is a subtle difference around them. Your chart is really indicating that there's a mixture of needing to bring intangible things into tangibility and then put words to it and then find a way to change perspectives.
That is so what I do on like an everyday basis, especially with my poetry. My poetry shows people how I break down my own personal emotions, how I come to my own conclusions. You see, like in the start of the poems, I'll be like, I am scared of complimenting this girl for some reason. And then by the end of it, you go through the journey with me where I discover, oh, because I'm scared of being seen, because I'm scared of the rejection, because I'm scared that she might just brush it off. Oh, it really was the fear of visibility in that particular poem.
Ooh, I love that. And I think that also speaks a lot to that moon opposite Pluto
Yeah.
that you have. Your Pluto is in the sixth house of process. So that is also like tied into that pillar 6 of working through the emotional process by uncovering, by alchemizing.
Yeah. That's my process.
Pluto is in Sagittarius. So it's like
Yes.
about the alchemical journey. But since it's in such a tight connection to your moon, who again, with your chart, with all charts, everyone's tied up with everyone else. But in your chart, we've been like here and there and here and there and here and there and here because they're all like bouncing
They
so
really are. They're all fucking
strongly.
connected. It's crazy how like the pattern. This is why I love astrology and why I got into it. I fucking love patterns. My Gemini mind is like yummy patterns.
I like to call it a Gemma mind. But yes, you should. Everyone should use Gemma mind. But it really is that process. And that's another fun thing. Poetry I mentioned is pillar 12, Pisces and Neptune in the 12th house. Your moon is in the 12th house. Hello. So like you're using poetry and it's in Gemini. So of course it's like words without rules, words that can blurs, words that can rhyme, words that don't have to make sense. We're processing here.
Poetry,
Right.
very
And that's the beauty. It's nonlinear. It's such a testament to that placement. It's almost like that energy is doubled up in a sense. The moon in Gemini is going to bring in some pillar 3 stuff, but it's opposite Pluto, who's in the 6th house, so pillar 6. But then you have Mercury, the planet of pillar 3, square Chiron, the planet of pillar 6. So it's like we have this like doubling up of working out, figuring out, solving problems, resolving, assessing, dissecting, breaking down through words, through thinking our ideas. And there is, of course, that strong 12th house quality that runs through you, which brings it into this otherworldly kind of how do we integrate all of these different ideas into one cohesive, unified force?
Oh, let me just tell you, I have been cooking over here and I have like, that's exactly what I'm working. That's exactly what I'm working on is like, I have so many ideas and so many plans. And now I'm figuring out how to here goes here goes here how these connect. This is how this connects with this is how that connects. Like everything that I'm working on for my business, everything that I'm creating and that I plan to put out, they're all somehow freaking connected. It's that like...
Well, that makes sense based on what we've been going through your chart. So why don't you tell us about a few of those since we'll start to land this plane here. It's clear that you've been doing this work your whole life. It's clear that you still have lots of work ahead to do. So I would love to hear about what you are putting together with all of this knowledge and wisdom that you've been garnering. And I know we didn't get a chance to dig super deep into the cyclical work that you do, but maybe this would be a great opportunity to tell us more about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, regarding the cyclical stuff, I want to actually put out an app. I'm currently creating a little bit of an app I haven't yet decided if it's just going to be for women or if I'm going to somehow integrate men into it also. They'll have their own version because men are also affected by the moon cycle. And I think that's really important that they know that as well. But right now I'm here for the woman. And so for them, I'm creating this app where it tracks your cycles in combination with astrology, current transits, and what you are personally working on. Also, for people who are creative, they can use that information to govern how they do their business, how they show up in the business world. For someone who's not necessarily doesn't want to necessarily be a business person, but prefers to be more of a homebody and just like doing their own thing, I teach them how to do that too, how to do it with their rhythm. Because like, to me, it's not just the stars. It's not just the hormones. It's all of them combined, and that's what the app is. And also, I specifically wanted it to be an app because this way people can put in their own symptoms, build their own relationship with their symptoms. And then I take it, I look at the data, and I give them the information of here's what's going on. Here's the wounds, the emotions, the hormones that are showing up. Here's how to day-to-day take care of it. Because with hormones, for instance, yes, it's emotions first, in my opinion, but it's still very much real, and we still need to learn how to take care of it from a physical aspect. So like insomnia, for instance, is something that I struggled with my PMDD. And I learned that like triple max dosing on magnesium is the way to go. I'm having hot cocoa every single day in my luteal phase so that I can sleep.
Oh, and it's working, I would assume?
Yeah, I went from like 1
Amazing.
hour of sleep to 6-7 hours of sleep in my luteal phase. It's like, that's a lot for me.
That's incredible. Amazing. So is there a launch date, or are we still in early development? Unfortunately, our recording cut off right there due to some unforeseen tech issues, but luckily, all of the good stuff, you already heard it. While Oriyah's app is not yet live, her journey is definitely nowhere near finished unfolding. She's already sitting on more wisdom at 22 than most people gather in an entire lifetime, which is bound to blossom into many more incredible opportunities. That's what happens when you start doing this work early. You can find Oriyah at oriyahsoul.intuitive.af on Threads and Instagram. Go follow her, watch what she builds next, read her poetry, listen to her channeled messages, because in many ways, Oriyah's story is a lot of our stories. And seekers, don't forget to stay in orbit by subscribing, leave a comment, and let me know what's landing for you. And of course, sprinkle some stardust by sharing this podcast with the Astro Hose in your life. You can find me, Laurel, at soularcastrology.com, on Threads at astro_Aries, or on Instagram at soularc_astrology. Until next time, friends, ad astra.